You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you fed up with the corporate bullshit holding you back? Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the digital entrepreneur podcast, the ultimate launchpad for entrepreneurs ready to seize control and unleash their creative genius. Hosted by Phil Better, the Podcast Mogul. Each week, he's breaking the chains of conventional work with bold strategies, raw insights, and inspiring success stories from the digital entrepreneurs who took the risk and invested in themselves. This is your call to arms. Invest in yourself, break free from someone else's rules, and build the empire you deserve. Now let's dive headfirst into today's explosive episode.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Invest in Yourself, the digital entrepreneur podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better. And today I am excited because we have an exceptional guest whose entrepreneurial journey and dedication to innovation are nothing short of inspiring. Our guest today is a lifetime entrepreneur and the visionary founder CEO of Outsource Access, an offshore business processing, outsourcing, and virtual assistance company based in the Philippines. In just 4 years, he has grown the company to 500 employees, serving over 75 industries across all business functions. His remarkable achievements have earned him 8 global or national awards. And his entrepreneurial spirit doesn't just stop there. He's also co-founded One-on-One Connections, a unique private label software platform that provides one-on-one connections at scale for member organizations and conferences. As a global speaker in 12 countries and the host of Automate and Delegate podcast, something that I love, his influence and insights reach far and wide. He is also the mastermind behind VA's Give Back, an initiative aligned with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. If that's not enough, he has a TEDx talk with over 230,000 views. Our guest champions agility and believes in building a powerhouse culture through people-centric programs and inspired employees to realize their full potential. His dedication to fostering a positive and dynamic work environment is truly commendable. But he's also an active member in the Global Entrepreneurs Organization and the Young Presidents Organization Atlantis chapter. He lives in Atlanta with his wife and his 2 amazing children. And when he's not running major corporations and doing all this amazing entrepreneurship, he's helping his kids, in baseball, softball, and of course, fishing. So please get ready to be inspired by this man's incredible journey and welcome Brad Stevens to the show. Brad, thank you so much for being here.
Phil, I appreciate that lovely introduction. I think that is in the top one of intros that I've received. So thank you for the kind words.
You are more than welcome, and the words are just I'm losing my words. I've used all my beautiful words for the intro, but you are well worth that amazing intro with what you've done, not just with the UN and helping people in the Philippines change their lives. You're a man that loves helping people, and I'm glad to have you on the show.
I appreciate it, Phil, and back to you. Thanks for what you put together in this podcast. It's I know just inspired. I've been enjoying listening to it. It's my steady jog podcast, and always great high takeaway value. And I know when people dive into these, they want to walk away with something they can put into place, and this is no short of that. So hopefully, I can live up to the expectations of prior guests here.
Oh, I'm positive that you can. So we're going to just jump right into it, Brad. Why did you become an entrepreneur? What made you decide to go into this crazy world of entrepreneurship?
It is a blessing and a curse sometimes, Phil, especially even from this morning in conversations and things I'm navigating. No, it's one of those. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, grew up or got exposed to entrepreneurship, as part of their youth, and I was a bit no different. I think that's probably where the spark started for me. Is grew up in with an entrepreneurial type of family environment. As I always joke around, there was like a whiteboard like permanently hanging above the fireplace growing up. Like it was always with these horrible strings that my mom hated, but like my dad had up, and there was always ideas and brainstorming and stuff. So kind of grew up in entrepreneurship and so I always kind of had it around me, and I worked in the the warehouse and stuff, kind of growing up. But I tell you, the spark I think for me came. So my dad used to drive me to school every morning, right? And we had about a 20-minute ride to school every morning, and I still remember he had this like blue Lincoln Continental, like blue seats. I can still smell what they smelled like. A 1980 version of some kind, and I always talked to him about entrepreneurship in that drive, and he would share, and I would ask about the business. And this is like third, fourth grade, and so from this conversation, actually, it kind of inspired me to start my first, my lemonade stand. Everybody has their lemonade stand story, and mine was in third grade, and started renting micro machines. So I kind of took those insights from my dad and kind of hearing and talking about entrepreneurship, and like, what, I'm going to do my own little thing here. So everybody remembers micro machines, right? Those little tiny cars, the guy that spoke 1,000 miles an hour in all the commercials. I love micro machines as toys. And as a kid, I asked for them for all my birthdays and Christmas and so forth. So I ended up getting like a collection, like 500 or 600 of them. And so I decided to do a toy rental business in third, fourth grade. And so it's funny, my mom still has a little folder, and it has like micro machines business. You open it up, and it still has like a typewriter, like newsletter we did to our customers. And a woman named Winter Hawkins, I'll still never remember. She was my VP of sales. We made up little paper credit cards for ourselves. We had frequent shopper cards, and we would rent them a penny a night, to my friends in third grade. And that like the little like stations, the mall and the gas station, and those were like a nickel a night that we rented out. So that was my first foray. And funny enough, I went to a little Christian school, and the way that I brought them in is my parents enjoyed Crown Royal, not excessively, but they liked Crown Royal. And there's like purple velvet bags, right? Yeah. I carried my micro machines into my little Christian, my Christian school in third grade.
That must have made the priests and nuns kind of a little questionable when they see a 3-year-old, not a 3-year-old, but a grade 3 bringing in Crown Royal velvet bags.
Hey, they were easy, had a nice little cinch top on them. But my Christian school there. But it was, so that was my fun lemonade stand story. And, it kind of kicked off growing up around it, and kind of inspired me to do that. And I ended up starting a tutoring company in high school, actually. So that's why I made my money during the summers, is I would go to all the middle school counselors and say, hey, do you have any kids, A, that are struggling in math, or B, want to skip a grade in math that I could work with from tutoring? So I went to all the counselors because they knew. And then I went to the teachers to get all the paperwork and the little workbooks and worksheets. Back then, what was that? I don't know, 94, 95. Well, no, 97, I think. I was like charging like $20 an hour. And it's like I had a whole group of like little, tutoring. I did math tutoring, through the summers. So I would say, a couple of collection of events, getting exposed and growing up in it. And actually my senior year of high school, we actually had a class. It was an international trading class. So part of the class is we had to raise money, sell stock to our parents. We had to hold a golf tournament to raise capital, and we worked with another company, another school in Scotland. And so we chose products to export to them that they sold locally in Scotland, and then they chose products to export to us that we sold to schoolmates and parents and stuff. So those are my collection of events that kind of kicked off, I think, my passion for entrepreneurship, and kind of led down the road, which I can continue to dive in the journey since then. But if you're asking the spark, I think that's kind of where it started and has continued.
I love that. I love that you started in grade 3 with micro machines in velvet bags of Crown Royal, and then that led you to your senior to tutoring, and then doing the international trading, which is very interesting that your school had that, because that's something that like not a lot of kids have access to, that kind of level of commerce, if you will, and gives you a touch of the international field to see how the world really works. When you finally decided, when you finish your schooling and all that, did you jump into the 9 to 5, or were you like, no, entrepreneurial for the rest of my life? Like you were bitten and you were like, I'm staying here for the rest of my life.
Well, that was also kind of an interesting kind of path. So I thought I was going to be doing 9 to 5. Well, would have been way more than 9 to 5 in the industry I was going into, and then ended up redirecting entrepreneurially kind of unexpectedly. But fortunately, so college, I went to Harvard University my freshman year, and then I ended up deciding to transfer down to Wharton University of Pennsylvania. Graduated with finance and marketing concentrations. I love the liberal arts, but I love the business education, and kind of UPenn was the only kind of Ivy school that kind of offered both, and I was super fortunate and lucky to have that opportunity. So I ended up into my senior year at Wharton. I wanted to get back down. I mean, I'm from Atlanta. I wanted to get back down south, the warm weather. My family is all here. And so I originally had signed with a investment banking company called Robertson Stevens. No relation to me. They spell it with a PH. But they were big in the tech sector. And this was in 2002 when I graduated college. And they're the ones that like took E-Trade public. They had main offices out in San Francisco, but they had an office in Atlanta. And so I originally signed with them. I knew I was going to go the entrepreneurial path at some point, but I had some school debt to pay down, and so I took that job in Atlanta. Here I was, 21, 22 years old, young guy going back to Atlanta. I got an apartment with another guy that was single, living in downtown Buckhead area in Atlanta here, if anybody knows, and just going to make good investment banking money. I think it was like 60 grand or something was going to be my salary way back then, which is like $1 zillion in my mind. So it was going to be the life, right? And about 3 weeks before I was supposed to start with this company, they got shut down. So they were owned by Fleet Bank, if anybody knows, up out of Boston. And, we know where the tech sector and things were going kind of 2002, 2003. And so, yeah, they got notice, and it surprised all the. I was about to fly out to San Francisco to do my corporate training for 3 weeks, and got notice that sorry, we've been kind of shut down. So I got to keep my signing bonus, and I got 3 months severance pay, and never worked a day for this company.
That's pretty good.
I was like, Phil, I'm just gonna go find the next failing company and see if I can collect another 20 grand. I'm just gonna daisy chain this situation, and. But no, I mean, seriously, it was a big fork in the road opportunity, like a lot of us have in life. And so I did have some other offers. I had some offers. With Goldman Sachs, I had an offer to go do investment banking up in New York if I wanted to be back up to New York. I had some other local offers with some companies, in the Atlanta area and consulting. Pepsi actually had an opportunity with them up in New York in marketing. But I was trying to decide what path I was going to end up taking. And my senior year, before I graduated, my uncle at the time had sent me, this concept around helping low-income people with pharmaceuticals. And it was this entrepreneurial idea that he was thinking about pursuing, and thought if I'd be interested, and said, man, I got to go take a normal job here. Got to, pay some debt down, but I'll, keep an eye on it. So when that happened, here I am, got 20 grand in my pocket. Right. And that was kind of the balance between the signing bonus and severance pay. And had this opportunity to start a business with my uncle at the time to help create walk-in locations to help low-income people qualify for free medications, because the major pharmaceutical companies have programs that if you know how to fill out the paperwork, you can get free medication if you qualify in terms of income. But most people don't know they exist, and most doctors aren't kind of willing to. Not it's a blanket statement, but it's a lot of paperwork that doctors have to fill out as well, and it was kind of challenging to get done. So he was a doctor, and so anyway, long story short, ended up kind of revisiting with him and deciding that was something that he and I could partner on. And so hung my head, canceled the amazing apartment in Buckhead, Atlanta, and tucked my tail and moved back in with my parents down in Fayette County, where they were from, and moved in with my parents and decided to start my entrepreneurial path. And so that's what I did. So he was down in Alabama. So I was living back and forth between Atlanta and Alabama, where we had walk-in locations. And then we kind of ran the call center out of my parents' house. My mom and myself kind of running the call center side of it. And so that was my first kickoff. And yeah, so it was one of those, I had little money, but kind of got it underway. And this is when I really learned the value of free advertising. Is I was writing to all the major editors of all the major publications and newspapers, because we didn't have a lot of money to market and advertise our business. But I kept telling them, hey, these are amazing stories. We're having a huge impact on these senior citizens that are going from paying $700-800 a month for the medications, can't afford, their groceries, So that's helping them get them, for free. We would just charge a small application fee, $40, $50 to fill it out. If they didn't qualify for free medications, we had a mail order pharmacy relationship that we could get them for mail order for them. And lo and behold, one day I remember coming back from a Georgia Auburn game a buddy of mine went to, and his mom walked out when I dropped him off and said, "Brad, y'all are on the cover of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution," which is the main newspaper for Atlanta, with zillions of readers. And sure enough, one of the editors had actually finally taken one of the stories and went and interviewed some of the patients that we were helping out. And the phone started ringing like crazy. And so in entrepreneurial fashion, my parents, kind of small house they had, I called my grandmother, I called my aunt, and I said, "Hey, I need you guys to help man the phone." So literally in this tiny little 10 by 5 room, I had my mom, my aunt, my grandmother. Computers back then were these huge HP, monstrosities.
Yeah.
And you had to pay for long distance. My long distance bills were nuts back then. But calls were coming in, and I still remember, I can snapshot in my mind, and my mom, grandmother, and aunt all taking calls in and helping fill out paperwork for people to qualify for the mail order relationship, or we'd send them down to do the free medication. So anyway, it's a fun entrepreneurial journey of, you get the family involved and do what you got to do when things are underway. But that was my first adventure.
I love how your first adventure your adventure seems to be always helping people. I'm seeing this. The toys, helping kids have more fun with their toys. It's a little kid thing, but still. And then, you're helping kids with their tutoring, and now you're helping senior citizens improve their life because they have this lower cost and they can afford everything. And then you're helping families in the Philippines take care of their families for generational wealth. Has helping people been something that always been core to you? Is that a core value that you were brought up with, or is that something that you kind of tumbled into, if you will?
I think it goes back to raising and what you learn from your parents, your grandparents. I was fortunate to have actually all my great grandparents were alive until I was 17 years old. So my parents got cracking early. They had me at 19 and 20 years old. So I was fortunate to have some great family, around me, and my parents, grandparents, and great grandparents. They were all very positive influences. And I didn't really, recognize it honestly from a pattern standpoint until a little later in life, and some people had shared. But I think it is sort of what I was brought up with, and we always were, supportive and helpful, and what my parents had kind of built into me in terms of having a sense of gratitude and appreciation and pouring into others. And these were, for-profit entities that we were launching, but kind of ended up having that, that theme. And so, as I got older in life, and we ended up, that first business I had, and can share sort of the rest of the journey that led me to the Philippines, had other companies in between, but ended up starting a breast cancer awareness initiative. It was actually a skeet shooting event that we held at my grandmother's house. She had a big bunch of property. And so a buddy and I ended up launching the skeet shooting event we did for 5 years that would help with raising money for breast cancer awareness, specifically this organization that provided prosthetics for women that went through, through breast cancer. I wouldn't say it's something I naturally, I would have, went out and said, this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It's just, I guess it's sort of naturally the values and how I've been brought up, and, kind of ended up drifting that way. I had a business in the teeth whitening space that I wouldn't say, at the end of the day, we can brighten smiles. I guess you can say that's kind of helping people as well. But I think there's always been a give back initiative. I've always had a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation. I kind of share my appreciation, every morning in my morning prayers. And so I think it's had a theme, I guess, in things I've done. And the United Nations work that we've done has kind of been in alignment with that in the Philippines. And we're very committed to giving back in the community and the environment. And we've won some awards for that. But it shows our people that we care about something more than just our company and ourselves, right? At the end of the day, it's about doing something that's bigger than yourself. And so when our staff see that we're, feeding the hungry in the Philippines, or we're providing thousands of sanitary kits after an earthquake event, or, if we're going to a school with children with learning disabilities and volunteering our time, or when I was there last, I think now we've planted over 350, 400 trees to offset carbon emissions in the Philippines, all aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So I guess it's kind of, been a theme, and the people around me have, encouraged and been of like mind. And I think that's, what's maintained the momentum.
I love that. I love that even without knowing, that theme of helping people has been there. Of course, it comes from, I'm guessing, somewhat of your religious background too. Jesus was helping people as well. So, kind of learning from his teaching.
Sure.
What happened? I want to go back to helping the elderly get that free medicine. How long were you running that before either selling it or it closing down or you leaving that space?
Yeah, so we had, like I said, kind of two components. Up in Atlanta area was kind of running the call center piece, so people could call us from all over the country if they, we could get them to qualify for the free meds, and we would help them fill out the application to do the mail order pharmacy relationship where we could get it substantially discounted from what they were paying. And then we had the locations down in Alabama, and then we were getting some underway in Florida where we were setting up walk-in locations and partnerships so that people could walk in. We partnered and worked with this company in Texas that basically was a software that had all of the applications for all the drug companies kind of pre-populated, so that when they came in, we knew how to fill it out, and it would pre-populate and fill all it out so we can kind of make it efficient. But long story short, that was also my first business partner relationship, and we kind of had some of our challenges, along the way, and we'll go into all the detail. There's also family dynamics that kind of get involved with kind of his spouse and things at the time and what have you. So we could agree to disagree on some things, but long story short, I ended up deciding to kind of part ways. And so he kept the walk-in location portion of it, and I kind of maintained the mail order piece of it. And I still have my mom and, kind of heading that up. And when the Medicare prescription bill kind of came around, and I think it was 2006, it made a huge difference, which was good in terms of the cost of medication. So the value proposition on the mail order side was kind of, dropping. So I knew that was going to phase out at some point. So I began deciding what was my next venture going to be. But yeah, that was the kind of the impetus of the transition there. And then it led me into the nutritional product space, which I can kind of share what that next venture was.
Well, I want to, did the nutritional space, I'm guessing, did you happen to read the 4-Hour Workweek to jump into the nutritional space, or was it just a happenstance that you walked into that, or you fell into that space?
So yes, I have read 4-Hour Workweek, but it was not at that time. And It did inspire my future business, but not that one. Now the nutritional product space. So when I was looking around and trying to find opportunities, and so I ended up meeting a guy in Atlanta this time, and he was in that space, nutritional products, supplements, and so forth. And the thing is, I did like about the pharmaceutical side was the recurring component of it. Right, there's a recurring subscription piece, and that is just so valuable from a revenue standpoint and sustainability, finding recurring revenue opportunities. And so, the supplement business was similar to that. So we ended up kind of building, he and I partnered together, and we were originally working with another company and selling their products, then decided we wanted to create our own. And so went through the whole journey of knowing how to create a product, formulations, going through the FDA label approval process, creating the product, supply chain, manufacturing with a partner manufacturer, dealing with third-party logistics companies that we worked with in two different states, and supply chain and getting them shipped out to our clients. And then we bundled that with a meal planning software, and then metabolic testing software as well. So it was kind of a whole wellness product that they would do this metabolic testing equipment to determine what their resting heart rate was, and would use that to then drive kind of this meal plan creation that would help them hit their weight loss goals. And then we coupled that with the supplement line that they would take kind of along with it. That was more for general health, multivitamins, and so forth. We had a weight loss product, but it was more, you had a protein product and a variety of things. But yeah, that's what kind of drove that. As I was just looking for something, ran across this guy. We ended up partnering together, and we started in that space and launched that product line. And I learned an enormous amount. I mean, doing physical products and manufacturing, and even the tedious nature of like creating labels, and had to work with an FDA attorney out of Chicago about exactly what you can and you can't say, dealing with supply chain, manufacturing, dealing with third-party logistics companies, getting things delivered. And then how do you get these? We were selling primarily through health professionals too. We weren't selling through mass retail. So we were selling through, chiropractors and medical doctors and spas and that kind of thing. So then we had to learn and teach them how to sell the products to their customers or their patients. And had to have a whole account management support infrastructure there. So learned a ton in that business. Never, skyrocketed like we had hoped, but would never trade the experience and education, because the next business we ended up starting from that was also product based in the teeth whitening arena. that I can kind of share a little bit about next. But that was sort of what that journey was.
And so from the medicine to the healthcare, pretty much, weight loss and, multivitamins to the teeth whitening. What was after the teeth whitening? Because I'm guessing the process was similar, learning about the logistics, building that business up, dealing with the dentists, getting them to sell that. When did the VA situation and helping people in the Philippines come about?
Sure. And it was kind of a byproduct that was born out of the teeth whitening business. So, and the reason why we started that is that, the nutritional products we weren't selling at the volume that we wanted to sell, and getting health professionals to sell was kind of challenging, particularly that nature of that product. But what we had built basically was this huge amount of relationships, in the beauty space, like tons of spas and salons and tanning salons that we're selling and so forth. And teeth whitening was all the rage. If anybody remembers, Groupon and people buying Groupons to get teeth whitening and so forth, it was an instant gratification. People were willing to pay for it. So we said, why don't we transition and leverage all the relationships that we have in the beauty space, and then create our own, teeth whitening product line. So we had a lower level strength product that we sold to the spa, beauty, tanning salon industry. We had a set of retail products that we sold there. And then we ended up getting into the dental space. So we had two different divisions. We had a lower strength product we sold through spa salons, tanning salons. And then we created a professional strength line that we sold through the dental markets. And that grew pretty well. I mean, we were in about 18 different countries internationally as well. We were selling also through some mass retail relationships also. But as all entrepreneur journeys happen, had another bump in the road, and that was with one of our products. And we were doing well with all of it. And one of the products that we had was doing really well, which was called our Chick Flick pen. It was a double-sided pen that had teeth whitening gel on one side and lip gloss on the other side. It had little mini LED lights in it, had these little rhinestones on it. And we had a partner manufacturer at Taiwan that we were working with to develop, that product. And they're full, ISO 9000 certified. They did the products for some high-end cosmetics companies. So really high quality, company and manufacturer. So they would, manufacture the pen itself and the teeth and the lip gloss portion of it. And then they would ship it to our manufacturer in California. They would fill the teeth whitening gel side of it, put the cap on it, and then put it in the box and ship it to all of our customers. Well, after we had done, thousands of units, really successful with it. We had some, celebrities that were using it, and we're on the cover of Us Weekly magazine. We're like, man, this product maybe needs to be its own entity and its own effort. Mm-hmm. And so we decided the next batch of those pens we were going to send to all the beauty editors and all the bloggers nationally about this product and see if we could turn it into its own kind of standalone through e-commerce. Well, that next batch that they manufactured in Taiwan, on the teeth whitening gel side, the way it worked was there was a little stem with a brush on it, and you filled out you would dip it into the teeth whitening gel and brush it on your teeth is how it worked. Well, one of the manufacturers changed the bioadhesive glue that held the brush onto the stem and didn't tell us, right? So when they shipped it to our manufacturer in California to fill the teeth whitening gel portion of it, whenever they put the gel and screwed it in, it would happen immediately, but because they changed the glue that held the brush onto the pen, after about 2 months, it would start reacting. And it would build up gas, and it would either do one of two things, Phil. It would either build up enough gas where it would crack and ooze all over inside and all over the package and everything else, or it would build up enough gas, and when they went to open it, when it got to that final thread, it would shoot through the wall. An incredible volume. So basically, we shipped 10,000 grenades globally. Actually, and this is the batch that we sent to our customers, but also we had individual ones we sent to all the beauty bloggers, all the main editors of hey, check out this amazing product. It's double-sided. It's got little mirrors and lights and lip gloss and teeth whitening gel and so forth. And ended up being obviously quite the mess. So long story short, that created a big mess I had to navigate. I kept waking up every day. Am I going to get a lawsuit from somebody, getting their eye damaged with, hydrogen peroxide or whatever? But cash was tight, got lean, and I had to figure out how we were going to get on the other side of it. And so I had read Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week, right? And I'd heard about it, and I went, and a friend of mine, I remember going to dinner. It was a Mexican dinner. It was the husband of one of my wife's friends. And he's like, man, look at this website called Elance. I just got this website done for $500, and I got quoted $5,000 to get it locally. I was like, what is that? So I got into it that night. For 5 hours straight, I lived on elance.com and Odesk. For those of you that remember those that existed before Upwork. And I was like, this is going to change everything. And so I went in the next day to my marketing director and I'm like, hey, all that stuff you want to do, we're now going to do it. And we're going to use offshore people and we're going to find them all over the world to do things low cost and fast. And so kind of like how ChatGPT is today, it's like just knowing offshore talent exists is one thing, but then creatively how to use them and what they can do and what they're capable of. So we were having them do like content and videos. And then I figured out ways to like do data scraping where they could data scrape leads and prospects. And we'd have them log into the LinkedIn accounts of our sales reps and do outreach and connections and so forth. So long story short, it helped us save the business at the time, learning how to use offshoring. And I became a massive student of it. And so we ended up being able to sell that business to our manufacturer. And I had this knowledge base of outsourcing and where to go find people and what have you. And so that's how I ended up leading to this business. First version was I just did a lot of speaking and educating. I kept getting asked by the EO Entrepreneurs Organization I was a part of. They got, 200 chapters globally. I got asked to go, hey, go tell people, like, will you share with us, like, how you use these offshore resources, right? And back, this was like 10 plus years ago, so it was still relatively new, but especially for the small to medium business market. Most people think outsourcing is for big companies and call centers. I'm like, no, you're a muffler shop in St. Louis. You can get somebody to do your bookkeeping in the Philippines. Let me show you how that can work. So anyway, I did a lot of speaking, educating, consulting for a while. I would refer people to other companies I had found and just help people in that journey. And it was my mastermind forum group. They're like, Brad, like you talk and educate on this all the time. Like, why don't you just go launch your own operation? And so the Philippines, I'd specifically been working with a lot of people because, English is their second language, Americanized culture and so forth. And so my very first VA I started working with there, J-Cell, who ended up becoming kind of our COO over now 500 people. So that's a whole nother story to share as far as her journey and being able to raise her lid and grow. But I was just amazed with the people, their competency, their work ethic, and how much they were able to offload from me, things that I wanted to get off my plate, but also the things that I wasn't able to get to. And so, yeah, in 2019, I flew over there, toured all the different facilities and operations in the Philippines, decided how we wanted to launch, what method we wanted to launch, what kind of operation we wanted to have. And we kind of opened our doors, and 500 employees later in 75 different industries, kind of where we are. So there's lots I can share in that journey, but that was kind of the path that led. And I share that for entrepreneurs out there. Like, I've now come to look at every single crisis as an opportunity. I know as cliche as it is, but every one that I've had, it's somehow translated. As long as you have the right mindset, you look at where the opportunity can come. And from blowing up teeth whitening pens all over the world, thinking that I'm going to get a lawsuit and shut down my life forever, to building a skill set that translated into the most passionate business I've ever had in my life, that I wouldn't trade for anything.
I love that. And I love how you went to, I can only imagine the stress you had with those teeth whitening pens when you found out that they could be a grenade and hurt someone. I would wake up in sweats if I had that situation every morning, which is waiting for an email saying you've been served. Right. When you finally opened the VA company and you're like, okay, this is my bread and butter. This is where we're going now. And you started seeing your employees. I'm guessing your employees were bringing in family members as well to grow so quickly. Mm-hmm. Because I remember you mentioning that in our pre-chat, you have your employees were bringing in family members because of how great you guys were doing it. When the first family member came into the company, what was that like for you when you found out that your employees were so happy with the job that they were doing that they were willing to bring in family members to help grow this amazing business? What was the sensation for you?
Well, I mean, it's very validating. And I think, the best testament to what you do is, are people willing to bring other people to be on that same journey, whether it's, getting a referral from an existing customer, telling their friends to kind of come and join, or, in our case, having individuals. And I remember on one of my trips, I think at one table, we had like 7 cousins, that were all working for us because they, wanted to have a good experience, and then, introduced it to another and kind of bringing them in. So no, I mean, it's very, very validating, and it was validating of, what we were building from a culture, standpoint. And, and it's validating, J-Cell, who was my very first VA, that ended up helping be a key leader in our growth, is a testament to her, the culture, the vibe that she had and her approach. Because it helped attract, talent that were in alignment. And so I think one of the things that really helped with that was that, we showed that we cared beyond, our own growth in the P&L. And so J-Cell, I remember when she and I first started working together, and I found her just on a job board. She was my personal, VA, and was having her help with my speaking and consulting business and so forth. And, and I was paying her well above kind of what the average was that a lot of people were making in offshoring. And a couple of months after we had been working together, she sent me a picture on chat. And it was this, picture of these children in this village, with these shoes in a circle on the ground. And she said, Brad, I just want you to know, because of the money that I'm making and the opportunity you've given me, I was able to go buy, all of these shoes for these children in this village, this low income village of, where I live. They normally have to walk like an hour or so to school, every day. And so, back to, I guess, a theme of, how do we give back? And, I'm a big fan of Jim Collins, right? And one of Jim Collins' first thing is he talks about is level 5 leadership. And the most successful companies are ones that have level 5 leaders, which I certainly fail on, but I try to aspire to, which is the difference between level 4 and level 5 are people are doing something for something bigger that's greater than themselves, right? And so I've tried to live, I guess, by that mantra. And so when I saw that, I'm like, it just clicked. It's like, the daisy chain here is that here I am in the US, I'm able to have Jaysel helping me at a rate that I can afford. Because basically I just wouldn't have hired someone because I didn't have the funds to hire a full-time person. So it wasn't like I was shipping a job overseas. It's basically, I just wouldn't have hired, and I would have worked more and more hours and stressed myself out more. But I was able to afford her that was helping me with my business. And then she was making enough money that she was able to pay it forward in her own community and buy shoes for these children. And so I told Jaysel that day, I'm like, I don't know where we're going to take this whole business. I said, but whatever we do, we're going to have some kind of major kind of give back, component that we pay it forward. And so interestingly, my very first trip to the Philippines that I had when we were launching, we replicated that same experience. And so I said, let's go buy 100+ pairs of shoes, like really nice pairs of shoes and like journals and everything for children in one of the villages. And the way we had to do is we had to have them take pieces of paper and draw their feet out on paper because that's the way we could get sizes. And they shipped them back. And when I was there, we went to this village and we, hand delivered and met with all these children and gave them really nice shoes and gave them these life planning journals as well. And, Jaysel kind of shared her story of inspiration, kind of growing up in a similar village. And now she got this opportunity, with she and I working together. So all that's to say, that's what then led to, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is, around that time as well, because of being a part of EO, I got a chance to go speak at the headquarters for the United Nations in New York, where we brought 200 entrepreneurs around from all over the world to see if we could help drive awareness and engagement with the Sustainable Development Goals. And if anybody hasn't heard of those, I had never heard of them at the time, to be honest. It was new to me. Just Google UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's phenomenal. And a lot of other nations internationally, know these. But it's basically 17 key functions that touch all of humanity and the environment. That as human beings, if we could be aligned to these 17 SDGs, we'd be a much better place. So it's things like zero hunger, economic growth and decent work for all, poverty, life above land, life below land. And so each of them had a framework. And so I got a chance to speak at the headquarters of part of this EO event and learned all about them. So I brought it back to my company and I said, hey guys, this is what we're going to use as the framework for us to do good and give back. So we got to where every single quarter, because at the end of the day, I don't want to push down to my people what I think is important. I want to get their input and what do they care about. So every quarter we would survey all of our employees and say, hey, of the 17 sustainable development goals, which of these resonate most with you? And then we would poll them, and whichever one rated the highest, we would choose a project to do in that category for that month. So life above land was one of the first ones that came. And so that's what drove one of our first initiatives was to go plant the mangrove trees, or go plant those mangroves, I think was the first one, to offset carbon emissions. Then another quarter we surveyed and it was, zero hunger. So we did a whole initiative, particularly during COVID, where we gave big bags of rice in this initiative called Bags of Hope for the taxi drivers, over in the Philippines. So all that's to say, going back to your original question is how do you get people wanting to bring family members in? I think they saw something in what we were doing, not just being an outsourcing VA company, and we paid people well and we employed them and paid their health insurance and paid their benefits because I chose to incorporate there so we could take care of them in a big way. But we had these initiatives that we gave back in the community and showed that we cared about their local community and environment, beyond just our business growth. So I think that's what helped in the process.
I love that. I kind of want, because you've had such a storied career, how do you go about investing in yourself to up level to become that level 5 leader? What do you do maybe daily or yearly to keep investing in yourself to become that level 5?
Yeah, I mean it's a part of one of our core values, and our core values at Outsource Access spell the word great. In honor of Jim Collins, the book Good to Great. And just as an aside, real quick, everybody on that's listening, I know a lot of people have heard Jim Collins and heard of his books, and familiar with an amazing body of work. But a lot of people don't know that if you go to his website on jimcollins.com, and if you click on the button, the menu item that says concepts, he's taken all of his concepts from his books and put them into this thing called the map. And it is one of the most tightly well-organized Bibles I operate from a business standpoint, that are principles that I think that are absolutely timeless, that are important now and will be important 300 years from now. So anybody here is Jim Collins fans? A lot of people I know I've never run across a person that knew on his website he had that, but he ties it all his principles, because people kept saying, Jim, like, you got all these great concepts, can you tie it together? So he created this thing called the map and created the buckets called disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action, or built to last. And he takes all his concepts and he puts them in those different categories, whether it's the hedgehog, the flywheel, all those different concepts. And level 5 leadership is where it starts, disciplined people. And so when I think about what does it take to continually grow, so one of our core values, back, they spell the word great, and one of those is, E stands for Everlong Quest for Improvement. And so personally, for me, one of the main things I did was joining EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. In my 20s, I wasn't a part of any kind of business organization or mastermind group. It was me and my business partner banging our head against the wall, trying to figure things out. I wasn't a part of a bigger entrepreneurial business organization. So in my early 30s, I joined EO back when we had the teeth whitening business. Was absolutely life altering. 12 years later, I'm still a part of it. It's a group of 8 other business owners for 4 hours every single month. We meet and we serve as a board of directors for one another. We dive into our businesses, talk about challenges, talk about wins, talk about family dynamics, because entrepreneurs and family are kind of very tightly integrated. And so I've been big in that organization with my forum, and I got a chance to do a program with Harvard Business School on inspiring entrepreneurial strategy. That was part of EO. And I did this entrepreneurial master's program at MIT, Endicott House. So EO has been a big part with my core group that I meet with, but the other organization programs that they offer, and just being around other next level type of thinkers and leaders, right? I mean, the quote of you're the average of the 5 people you're around, and iron sharpens iron, and all those cliches are absolutely valid. It's just, you're around the right people that are thinking and progressing in the right direction, it's going to rub off. So EO has been huge. And then last year, actually, I joined YPO, which is called Young Presidents Organization. Which are some slightly larger businesses. And as we've been growing, I'm dealing with the next level of, I've got 500 people, I got 90 managers, I got 8 C-suite executives. And that's been phenomenal as well. So I have a forum with them that I meet with. So every month I have a 4-hour group with my EO forum, and every month I have my YPO forum that I meet with. And then I'm going to events that both of them have with speakers and content. I'm going to an entrepreneurial conference out in San Francisco for YPO. And then just reading. I'm constantly, consuming audiobooks is mainly the way I consume while I'm running, podcasts like yours, referrals and recommendations, and 2 magazines, or 3, I guess, is Harvard Business Review, which actually I'm on that table back there. The Rotman, the management, it's called the Rotman Management. I just started subscribing to it. I'm trying to remember what it says, but it's phenomenal. It's from the University of Toronto, and it's one of the best kind of magazines I've seen on management strategy. And then Inc. Magazine as well. I still love Inc. Magazine, and a chance to be a part of the Inc. 5000, and just listening and reading the stories and case studies, and examples. So I try to do a little bit of reading, 10 minutes of reading, sitting on that couch right there every morning in my office here when I kick off the day, and have a quick prayer, some gratitude, appreciation, do a quick 10 minutes of reading, and, continue on the day. So I think it's the mastermind groups, reading, audiobooks, and podcasts, have kind of contributed to the ongoing learning.
I love that. And especially the podcasting part, because podcasting is a mastermind. Really, who would have thought podcasting is a great way to learn? I want to talk about your podcast for just a brief moment. When did you come up with the idea to start a podcast about your journey in the outsourcing?
Actually, right before I was a speaker at a podcasting conference. Because I wanted to be able to share a case study of how we built and launched our podcast using outsourced resources from scratch. So it's kind of an interesting little, case study to be able to share. Now, it was back several years ago, and I'm shameful to say I haven't been as consistent with my shows as you have been. We ended up, when our business just took off, I mean, the podcast was initially, a game plan for building awareness and brand awareness and, create opportunities. But it's called Automate and Delegate. And it was a great format. I got great feedback on it. And the whole idea was, what should you not be doing? So automate and delegate. What should you not be doing in life, business, and building relationships, And we would kick it off. I would have, one of our team members from the Philippines come on, and we would share a quick tool, because everybody loves a tool, right? Whether it's learning about things like StreamYard or screencasting or Evernote. So I bring on one of my staff from the Philippines to say, hey, what's the latest tool that we found? And he'd share a tool. And then I have guests on, and I'd have them just share 3 specific ways that they're automating and delegating in their life and their business. So it was very high takeaway value. The guests could share something very specific. And I'd have a closing question similar to you have as well. And so it was a lot of fun. I mean, I loved doing it. I think we did 10, 12, episodes. And I was able to show, like when I spoke at the podcasting conference, big shout out to my good buddy, Chris Krimitsos. It's called Podfest Expo. He's phenomenal. If you're familiar, haven't heard of Podfest Expo, you Google it, highly recommend going, attending, incredible experience. I got a chance to be a speaker there, and I just shared how to launch a podcast with outsourcing. So I kind of was able to show step by step how we used our VAs to, build the website, to do all the graphics, to do all the editing, to do all the components and parts and pieces of launching, the podcast. And then, did the guests. And actually my last guest on there was Warren Rustand. A lot of people don't know, but he was actually one of the advisors in the White House. Phenomenal leader, built multiple, large organizations. But yeah, so it's actually on the radar for me, for my CMO, is to get my podcast kicked back off. And to be honest, Phil, I think we may actually even be more targeted for our audience, is branding it how outsourcing works. Because when it comes to the whole world of VAs and outsourcing, like, people now know that it exists. Like, it's not a secret that low cost offshore talent exists. It's, how does this actually work? Like, I get it, but like, how do I make this integrate into my business? What are they going to do? How do I communicate with them? What about time zones? What about competency? So I started on my last trip to the Philippines. I interviewed about 25 of my own employees. So if you go to our website on outsourceaccess.com, and I think if you click on the learn drop down, you can see VA interviews. So it's me doing a whole series on how outsourcing works. So I would interview them and say, how are you working with your client of ours? Like, exactly how is it working? What exactly are you doing? How is it integrated with their business? So I think that's how we're going to launch our next podcast push.
I love that. Evolving the podcast, just like you evolved your businesses over time to come to this business. We are coming to the end, which I didn't even see the time fly, Brad, honestly.
I got there quick.
We did fly through quick. So I'm going to ask 2 more questions before we end. One of them is, I want to know, reflecting on your entrepreneurial journey, what was a pivotal moment that significantly influenced your approach to building people-centric culture at Outsource Access?
I think you kind of touched on it. I mean, I've learned throughout my entire journey of life of, what drives people. I mean, at the end of the day, you can give people what I call table stakes, good compensation and healthcare and time off and benefits and so forth. But, I think 2 of the fundamental things that human beings care about, and there's actually a third one from another survey that I kind of saw recently, which is, they just want to know that they matter, right? That they're recognized and what they're doing, matters. And they want to be a part of something, bigger, than themselves. You can do all the other things, but at the end of the day, people wake up every day. And I mean, work consumes a very large percentage of all of our lives. So if you're going to, it needs to be something that's going to, move you. And so, one of the things I do is actually, I write personal welcome messages to every single frontline VA that joins our business. And a lot of people say, you're the CEO. Shouldn't you be doing different things than like writing welcome messages to frontline employees? And honestly, I'm a little behind right now with a lot of things that are happening. I've got to get caught up. But it is one of the biggest things that give me some of the most energy, Phil, is, at literally every single frontline VA, 22-year-old person, this may be their first job or their second job working with us. And I'll say, hey, Jane, welcome to Outsource Access. We're so excited for you to be a part of our journey. I'd love to know more about you and your family and, what books are you reading and so forth. And it kicks off this incredible dialogue. And they're blown away because, particularly in a third world country, they've never gotten a letter from a CEO of any company that they've worked from. And we have a genuine dialogue. It's not a VA, it's me. And it takes about 10 to 12 hours a month when I do this for our new staff. But it it's what drives recognition. So that part of people just want to know that they exist. And so by doing that, makes a big difference. And Frank Blake, that turned around Home Depot, one of the biggest things he attributed it to was writing 100 handwritten letters every single day to frontline employees on the floor, at Home Depot. So that kind of inspired that idea. And then, being a part of something bigger than themselves, with the UN stuff that we're doing and, committing to a bigger picture, initiative, people feel that, we're doing stuff and impacting the community beyond it. So I think what you asked me is that, what was I inspired to build a people-centric organization? I just don't know of any other way to do it. At the end of the day, when people are choosing to come work for you, it's a big part of their life. It's their career. It's their livelihood. It's how they put food on the table, feed their families. But again, back to the every part of learning, like I just learned and observed what did other CEOs do and how can I build those things in to create a place and environment that people want to come to and they feel like they're doing meaningful work. And that's the other big thing is people want to wake up every day and, hey, did I have meaningful impact and progress in what I did? So we have a lot of reviews and celebrations and congratulations to our employees. And it's had a huge impact. I mean, it's people get a chance to really celebrate their work. And one last nugget I'll share from everybody, and I learned this from Bern Harnish, that wrote Scaling Up, and he's actually one of the founders of EO, the founder of EO. My wife and I went to a couples retreat, and one of the nuggets he shared, and is actually talking about with kids, is that try this. Don't just give one-way accolades to people. Don't go, hey, Phil, you hit your numbers this month. You crushed it. That must have taken a lot of hard work and discipline, man. Great job. We appreciate it. And then I move on. Take another second and say, but Phil, tell me how you did it. Tell everybody here in the room, like, how'd you pull it off? How'd you hit those numbers? What did you do? And just that additional question gives that person the opportunity to unpack and give them the stage of how they did pull it off. And so I took that idea and I immediately, because I would find myself, I would give one-way accolades to our employees. And we had this big chat board with 500 people on it. But I started doing that additional question when I would hear great feedback about one of our VAs and our clients gave great, testimonial. And I say, Jane, great job, fantastic. Thanks for representing us so well. Tell us how you did it. And I'm telling you, Phil, they would unpack a novel and tell me what books they had read. Like one of our VAs was like a savant on Henry Ford. She had read like 3 books on Henry Ford in the Philippines, grew up in this little village, now working for us, knew Henry Ford in and out, and like quoted him and said, this is part of what guided me and inspired me to be a VA and to deliver, the value that I deliver. So it's great for the employees because it gives them an opportunity to showcase. And I do it with my daughter. Like my daughter had a great softball game. Instead of saying, hey, Ella, great hit on the softball field, I asked her, hey, how'd you did it? And she's like, Dad, well, remember when we did this? And then I saw this other girl do that, and it allowed her to unpack. So I encourage everybody, both with your kids and in business. So we actually created a How I Did It book now in our company. So anytime we accolades and somebody shares, we copy and paste it and we put it in a book so that anybody that comes to work for us, they can read that book and our employees saying in their own words how they pulled off things in our business. So again, it's just learning from others and implementing, it's not completely original thoughts on my end, but I love hearing from things and putting them in place, and trying them out.
I love that. And speaking of giving advice to young people, I have your 10-year-old self here, Brad. What's one piece of advice you would love to be able to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
I should have charged 3 pennies instead of 1 penny. You're leaving money on the table. No, I mean, I tell you, I'm sure a lot of people have shared this, but I think the value of relationships in your life, I know in my 20s and so forth, I would meet people in life, everything from a random guy I would be paired with when I would go play golf, to, people I would meet at events. And I wasn't super intentional about like getting their information and following up and building like a personal like database of everybody that I ever met, right? Because as I've gotten older, and as we all know with the gray hairs, is that the book by Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy, like Who Not How, right? As we move forward in life, it's way more a who solution than a how solution. And when I look at the inventory of relationships that I have out there, I've been much more intentional later in my life of keeping, and I literally have a Google Doc called Brad's Contacts. And I try to be super disciplined. When I bump into somebody for any reason and it's a meaningful relationship, I'll go put it on that list, put their name, quick note about what I met, what their expertise is, or why I put it there. And it's crazy how massive that list is of people that we interact with in life. So I think I would tell my 10-year-old self is be much more intentional about keeping track of the people you meet, write those people down, keep a log of them, because whatever you want to do in the future of life, if you can keep that list and lean back on it, it'll pay huge dividends. It's more of a who solution than a how solution. And if I'd learned that earlier in the game, would have been helpful.
I love that. That's a great piece of advice. Brad, I'm going to jump off stage here and coalesce that a bit more and see if I should start the Phil's list, because 500 interviews. I think I have a few connections that I should re-up on. So I want to let you give my audience a chance to know where they can connect with you, how they can work with Outsource Access, or become part of that Brad's list. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Oh, thanks, Phil. Yeah. Love to stay in relationship with, per my advice to my 10-year-old self, love building connections and relationships. So, our website, outsourceaccess.com, if you're a business looking to explore the whole world of outsourcing and virtual assistants, we're in 75 different industries. You can go there. There's tons of videos and content that share all about taking you behind the scenes in our whole world and all the different industries and what have you. So I'd love to have you as a guest on our site and visit there. You can also, me personally, would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. You go to Brad Stevens. There's a lot of Brad Stevens on there. If you go to Brad Stevens, type Brad Stevens Atlanta or Brad Stevens Outsourcing, you'll find me there, and love to connect. On Facebook as well. And for the one-on-one connection software, you go to one-on-one, the number one on oneconnections.com. That's the software we created that creates member-based connections for organizations. And lastly, if anybody wants any specific, a whole list of tools and resources and recordings to presentations that I've done, if you'll just shoot an email to tools with an S, tools@outsourceaccess.com, and just put invest in the subject line, we'll know kind of where it came from, Invest in Yourself podcast. As you can imagine, I have a VA that monitors that email address, and we'll send you guys our top 10, our top 200 automate and delegate tools, and a bunch of recordings about outsourcing and case studies and examples, and happy to share that with you as well.
Amazing. As soon as we're done, I'm sending that email. Brad, be one of the first to get it. But Brad, I want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story with us, and giving us great pieces of advice to be more people-centric in our businesses. I think that's something that we need to do more of and bring that back into the world. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and just chatting with me.
I appreciate it so much, Phil. It's been a pleasure and opportunity to unpack. And each time I do these, there's different stories and different perspectives that kind of come out. And, but I give all gratitude back to the people, in my life, my incredible team and management team in the Philippines. And, from the beginning with JCell and all the others that we've kind of worked with. I wouldn't be here where I am without all of the people surrounding me being great contributors and leaders and inspiring me and pushing me to grow. So thanks to all of them, my parents, and everybody included in between.
Well, I thank them as well for bringing you up as the way they did and making you the man you are today, and being able to have you on the chat. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes to connect with Brad so that you can use Outsource Access. I'll make sure you have the links there, all in the show notes down below. Again, to Brad, thank you so much for being here. To my audience listening, and as always, remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for joining us on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. The Podcast Mogul reminds you that your journey to freedom and success starts with one powerful move: investing in yourself. If today's episode sparked your fire, hit that follow button on Spotify and drop us a comment. Share your wins, your challenges, and what drives you to break free from the corporate grind. Remember, you're your best investment. Always invest in yourself, because your potential is limitless. Until next time, keep hustling and take control of your destiny.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now And support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.